G'day, this is Kyle from Asize Digital and welcome to an overview video for the Xero platform. Now, a couple of caveats. So this is just going to be a brief overview of sort of the general look and feel and a few sort of features of the Xero platform. Um, I am by no means an accountant or a financial advisor, so any sort of specific questions or accounting related questions you have would be best to talk to your accountant or financial advisor. And there's just throughout the application, and also if you do need to look into anything specific as far as Xero is concerned, you can click up to here and go to the Help Center or directly sort of search from within the app as well. Okay, so the first section of Xero we're going to look at, of course, is the base sort of dashboard view, which is what we're looking at right now. So this is just going to show, of course, a few sort of key aspects of your particular business. As far as that's concerned. So you've got your bank account, you've got your account watch list, invoices owed to you, so any sort of invoices that need to be paid, and then of course the bills here that need to be paid by yourself as well. Um, you've got the status of your particular bank accounts and your bank feeds and that sort of thing as well, which I'll go into. Of course, expense claims and total cash in and out. Now, this can be customized to a degree. If there is, you can obviously just move these around at your will, and you can also choose to hide or show particular cards as well. Now, I will go through each of these sections up the top here separately. Just to the right here first, as far as these icons are concerned, the plus here pretty much lets you add any new facet from this list here. So, of course, any invoice, bill, contact, etc. Your folder is just basically anywhere that you want to store files and that sort of thing from your Xero instance. The notifications panel from up here. The search, now this search field is a combined search. So if I search for my name, for example, it'll come up with my contact name. And of course, any invoices that have against my name as well. So this search is a keyword search across the entire application. And as I mentioned before, we've got the Help Center links here. So up here is the current user that's logged on. So of course you can edit your profile and that sort of thing, and also log out too. Now, if this particular Xero account is going to have multiple businesses or organizations attached to it, you can click up here and you can see all the different organizations in question. So that is pretty much it as far as the dashboard is concerned. But of course, you can see there are plenty of ways to access other parts of the application. Now, any selection that turns blue, you can click into directly. So if I wanted to click into bank accounts from here, I can do so straight away. All that sort of thing. So pretty much any other part. So I wanted to go into a specific account, I can do that from here as well. Okay, so first thing we'll go into, actually, I would go through these sequentially, but it's going to make the most sense for me to focus on the contacts first, because this is going to bleed into every single other part of the application. Okay, so base overview. Contacts themselves, of course, are just going to be your clients and the companies and clients that you're going to be working with, obviously. Now, a contact in itself in Xero is just simply that. It's a name of a business, and also the contacts attached to that business. Now, you've got a couple of stipulations here. You've got customers and suppliers. Now, when I go in and create a contact, of course, you get the company name and you get any other sort of primary contacts that are attached to that. Now, when I go in and create a contact, it'll only be stipulated as a contact when I first create it. You can see here that you've got customers and suppliers. Now, you can't actually create a customer specifically, but what happens is that when you create a contact, if I then put an invoice against the name, it becomes a customer. If I then put a bill or purchase order against a contact, it becomes a supplier. So basically you have a hierarchy as you have contacts. They can either be customers or suppliers based on that stipulation. So whether they've got an invoice against the name or a purchase order. Now, of course, you can group your customers if need be as well. Very sort of simple functionality. You just give it a name, you go group, and then you can, of course, just assign particular customers from there. I can search and then sort and that sort of thing like that. Smart lists as well. So this is really good for a little bit of reporting and sort of a little bit of a CRM element as well. You can obviously go through any customers or contacts that have overdue or outstanding invoices and the ones that have paid us in the last year as well. So good little pieces of information there if you wanted to drill down and export for whatever reason. But that is pretty much it as far as the basic context. So the contact is understood. You can of course import and export and then send statements as well. Now if I click send statements, for example, it's just going to go through and show me which of my customers have outstanding balances against their name to be paid. So it's just good for me to go in and check that. Now there's a few other ways you can do that too. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is I'll go into accounts and then bank accounts. Now this is obviously where you'd have all of your bank feeds and syncing set up. So of course you'd link your business bank account to here, and then all of your transactions incoming on that bank account would come through to here. Now what this is really useful for is that then you can actually go into a reconciliation process. So I've put some test transactions in here. And so I've got some test invoices in here, and I've also got some test transactions in here as well. So for example, I have an invoice here that was created on May 4th for this amount, and I've got a payment that's come through on the 26th of May. So all I need to do is then check to make sure that that is the correct person, so the correct contact is there. You can see Cardiff Australia, and what that will do is that it's matched based on purely the amount and also the name as well. So if I go into the actual invoice, let's have a look. So just a moment. So I've got the Cardiff Australia one here. We can see here this is the invoice in question. And we can see here that's all the information there. Now, I usually what I could do is I could add a payment from the bottom down here, but by using this reconciliation process, it's going to link up directly with this particular payment in my bank feed. So once again, if I go reconcile 4 items, it matches up. As soon as I click OK, that's it. It's done. I'm pretty much now when I go back to that particular invoice in question, you'll see that that has been paid off, and that'll actually be in our paid section here. So Cardiff Australia, you can now see that that has been added as a payment on the invoice, and that will be reconciled against that particular bank account. So I can view the payments of that, and you can see right there was a payment on the 26th of May, and now it's been assigned to that invoice. So that's how your reconciliation would work. There are a few more sort of items, of course, if people are paying things in bulk. For example, I have a customer here who's paid $270, but if I look into that from my sales, you can see this is actually made up of 4 specific invoices. So I can actually then assign that payment across there. So I can do that by matching. And then I can just go through and select all the invoices in question. And there you go. Now, as soon as I've selected all 4 of the invoices that match the amount, you can see it turns green. I click OK, and everything's cleared and reconciled. And that's sort of the process you'd go through as far as the bank reconciliation is concerned. All right. Now, also here I can add bank accounts. Fairly simple in terms of process. You can just choose your Australian bank and then, or the bank, sorry, and go from there. Now, as far as, let's have a little bit of a look through. So you've got your sales processes as far as this page is concerned. You can see you can add yourself a new one, pretty much the similar process from here. If I'm adding myself a new sale, it's a fairly simplistic process in terms of I type in the contact. I then can set the due date for the due date for the particular payment. Now, you are able to set the payment terms for a contact in Xero at the contact level, meaning that if I had set this for this particular contact, it would just automatically update. I can set an invoice number and reference. I can then add a line item. Now, a line item is going to be obviously one of the things that we've added in inventory, which I will get to in a moment. But I can very easily change the quantity and amount that's going to be per each, and of course we can change the tax rate. And of course, then once that's all done, now we can at this particular point show that we can just save the invoice. Now, what's that going to do? That's going to save it as a draft. And then at that particular point, we can either go and approve it and then move on from there. So once basically when you have a draft invoice, you can then obviously approve it, and then you can actually assign your you can assign payments to this particular invoice. Of course, I have to set an account code as well. Once that invoice is approved, you'll get a confirmation for that, of course. Now, then at this point, I can choose to add a payment to this invoice against a particular account, add a reference if necessary, add payment, and that's all done. So now when I go to my paid view, I have just created that invoice and also gone through the entire payment process. So you can see here, if you look through the history, you can see that it's been created by myself, approved by myself, and then paid. Okay, the process is pretty much the same for purchases as well. So just one thing I didn't mention before is that you're able to, of course, see all purchase orders or invoices at their particular states. So how many are awaiting payment, how many are overdue, that sort of thing like that. It's really, really good sort of visual cue for you to realize that, and then take action as necessary. As far as creating a new bill is concerned, the process is pretty much exactly the same. You're able to add in a contact or a supplier. Now, same as I mentioned before, this searches by contacts. So if this was a contact that I'd added that didn't have a supplier invoice against it, it would become a supplier as soon as I did so. Similar to that, we can obviously add in the due date will auto-fill if there is a payment term set. And once again, we just go through the same process as before in terms of adding the product and then applying an account. Once we approve, so we're now at the stage where we're awaiting payment, and then again we can just add a payment directly from us, and of course it's going to be paid to the supplier in this case. Cool, so that's done and that's all paid up. All right, so inventory. So Xero is obviously, this is where you're going to be storing all of your products in Xero, and of course all their relative pricing and sale pricing. Sorry, pricing and cost pricing and that sort of thing like that. So a good point to note. Sorry, just go back. So that if I click on the product in question in Xero, you can see the purchases and sales, so the unit price versus the sales versus the purchasing price. And then you're also going to see any relevant history for that particular product. Now, if I go into edit and you have a little bit of a look over this, you can sort of see if you wanted to track the inventory against a specific account. And then also, yeah, this will also update all your quantities and that sort of thing will be updated when you actually do make orders. Now, if I just go back to this, sorry, it was the, hang on. Okay, if I go back to the purchases page, you can see that the invoice that was paid before, we're looking at this item code here, which is 1242036. So this one here. So I can now see that we've got an increase in quantity based on this bill, and there's the invoice from previous as well. So that's where you're going to be tracking your quantities. And only thing to really sort of keep in mind as far as that's concerned is that there's not really a reorder or restock process in Xero, but yeah, it's got those inventory flows as far as that's concerned. Okay, expense claims, very, very simplistic. Adding a receipt. Basically, you add a receipt from, again, a particular contact, add the date and the reference number, and then just adding an amount, and then obviously the account that you want to record the expense against. So expense. Cool. Once we've done that, we just click save, and it really is as simple as that. It just logs an expense against an account. Okay. And then fixed assets. So this is, of course, another whole separate part of the business whereby you can add in your fixed assets. You can then run depreciation against those particular assets. So I won't go into that too much in this case. Okay, so the next big sort of section is payroll. Now, again, because this is such a specific part of, based on the type of business that you're going to have, I'm not going to go into this to a large degree, but in terms of it, basically you're able to do what a lot of sort of employee management systems are. You're able to add yourselves employees, and then of course get them to fill in their hours, and then go through payment runs, then obviously manage leave, timesheets, and superannuation. Okay, next step is under reports. So this is basically the place where you can manage all of your financial reporting. Now you are actually able to go through, and so that when you star these reports like this, it will just basically mean that they will then show in this favorited list. As far as the reporting is concerned, if I just click on the balance sheet, for example, it's as you'd assume. Now, one of the things that you're able to do, of course, is you're able to drill down into each one of these things. If I wanted to go to a particular account within the liabilities, I can search for that specific account. Where's the And of course, so yeah, you can navigate, you can pretty much navigate through based on all of these, and then obviously drill down compared to what you'd like to drill down on. So particular balance dates, what you want to compare it against, sort by specific information from there. Okay, and then if we, yeah, so that's the basic sort of usage of your reports, and of course just mostly sort of starring them, adding them there. Of course, you can also create custom reports as well. Okay, so the next step is the advisor section. So from here, you're able to create your manual journals. So of course, if for any reason you need to make adjustments to specific accounts from here, you can do so. You can then export your accounting information to a specific sort of file to either be imported into another set of financial platforms if necessary. History, notes, and activity. This basically just gives you a play-by-play of what users are doing what within the system, and obviously really good for auditing purposes. You can see recently the recent transactions and bills and sales invoices that I've created have all come up here. I can then, as far as assurance, this is like a QA dashboard in terms of showing you what your users have been up to, and then of course what accounts have had action taken against them. Same things with a bit of data integrity checks too, making sure that there's no duplicate bank accounts or contacts as well. And then of course invoices as well. So anytime that something gets backdated, it will get recorded here, so it can then be audited after the fact. Okay, and then lastly, you've got find and recode, which is a system whereby you can go through and if necessary, you can set conditions here. So for example, if I want to just look into my sales invoices, I can then go in and recode these. So I can set, if I wanted to set, for example, this to be recoded, I can then change specific things, the contact, the account, the tax rate to be changed over. Really, really easy if you've got to, if things have been entered in error, you can obviously go through and make changes to those from there. And lastly, we're looking at the settings page. So let's go to the general settings first. So you've got your organization settings, pretty self-explanatory in terms of just your basic business information and that sort of thing from there. Okay. If we then go to your next, probably one of the most important areas here is your chart of accounts. Now, when you first set up your Xero account, that will give you the option to set up a whole lot of base accounts, but of course you can then go through the process of adding these from here. So I go to add account, I pretty much just add an account type based on what I'd like to add, assign it a code, a name, and then of course these specific taxes that you'd like to set. So you can actually, if you would like this to show up on the dashboard, you can show there as well. Similarly in expense claims, and then of course the ability to add payments to this account as well. Cool. And then of course adding a bank account is again relatively similar from what I showed you before. Now, if we go back to the general settings, actually one thing I will show while we're at the chart of accounts is of course you'll show the year-to-date amounts here as well. I can actually click into these pretty specifically to see exactly what transactions have been logged against this account and then their relevant invoices as well. So for example, that's 6,001 here. We've got the payment here, and then I have the invoice. So being able to sort of jump through and see exactly how a value got to that particular point. Okay, financial settings. So basically, this is your financial year settings or your tax settings, your defaults, for example, your time zone. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, this is as far as tracking is concerned. So if you have locations in your businesses or if you have specific item tracking, you can add this from here. Really, really good way to code your items and track where your invoices are where your invoices are being made, purchases, for example, as well. Okay, so the next sort of step from here is we've got the users. So of course you're really robust in terms of what you're able to do, and whenever you create a user, you're able to sort of lock down or give access to specific parts of the application for them to use. Like for example, being able to manage users, being able to manage payroll, for example. All right, so back to the settings page again. We've got the tax rate setting here. Now, of course, when you first create your Xero account, it will ask you for a location, and it will most times create a set of taxes based on that. But of course, these are freely editable and freely changeable. Really important to have these set up correctly as well, because a lot of if you are going to be using an integration that uses Xero, a lot of the time they will pull directly from these specific sets of tax rates. Invoice settings. So invoice settings here is your is obviously the invoice templates that you're going to be using. It uses the same system as a lot of other platforms, whereby it's based on merge fields. So for example, if I wanted to have a look at this one here, I can so I can look at a branding theme. Yeah, so yeah, again, very, very customizable in terms of what you'd like from that. But you can actually edit these in Word as well for custom templates. All right, so yeah, pretty self-explanatory as far as these are concerned. You can manage your payroll settings. Again, I'm not going to go too much into this, but it just gives you the ability to sort of change account mappings and make a few sort of different things as far as that's concerned. And then lastly, the last sort of area to cover is just your different apps that you've got connected. For example, if I look into connected apps here, I can see that we've got a few different CRM and inventory platforms connected to this particular Xero account. Just good for you to know and understand that as well. Okay, so that concludes our Xero overview video. As I mentioned before, if you'd like to get anything specific information-wise, Xero has a fantastic help desk, and also you can search directly from there as well. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.